What if I told you the most dangerous person in any room isn't the one with power in his hands, but the one with control in his mind? He doesn't shout. He doesn't posture. He doesn't even move more than he must. He simply exists, and the atmosphere bends around him. People feel his presence before he says a word. They shift in their seats. They lower their voices. They don't know why, but something in them senses it. A predator behind calm eyes. That's not fiction. That's psychology. And it's one of the most misunderstood weapons in human behavior. True power isn't loud, it's quiet. And today we begin the journey to becoming that silent force. The person whose stillness commands rooms, whose silence unnerves people, whose calm becomes an invisible storm. Since childhood, you've been taught that power is loud, that it's about dominance, about asserting yourself, about making noise. But Machiavelli, one of history's coldest minds, saw it differently. He understood that real power is psychological. It's not about what people see you do, it's about what they feel in your presence. Because when a person can make others feel uncertain, without a word, without a threat, that's control. Power that doesn't need to announce itself is power that lasts. Because words fade, but presence lingers. And here's the paradox. The most dangerous man doesn't want to control others. He simply controls himself so completely that the world naturally bends around him. That's the beginning of transformation. Not to appear powerful, but to become power itself. Think about the last time you met someone who made you uneasy. Not because they were aggressive, but because they were unreadable. You couldn't tell what they were thinking. You couldn't predict their reactions. Your brain started filling in the blanks, creating stories to explain the silence. That's the psychological foundation of aura. The human instinct to fear what it doesn't understand. People don't fear monsters. They fear mystery. When you master silence, you don't disappear. You become unpredictable. And unpredictability is power. When you enter a room, stop trying to impress. Stop trying to connect immediately. Stop rushing to fill the silence. The dangerous man does the opposite. He lets the room adjust to him. He absorbs the energy. He listens. He watches. He measures every word before he releases it. And in that calm, something begins to happen. People start reacting to you. You've reversed the dynamic. They're now the ones seeking validation. They'll try to make you laugh. They'll try to read your mood. They'll try to earn your attention. And that's when you've already won. You're no longer part of the room's rhythm. You are the rhythm. Here's why it works. Human beings are wired to crave certainty. When you give people no emotional cues, no excessive facial expressions, no over-explaining, no constant nodding, their brain enters a state of discomfort. That discomfort becomes fascination, and fascination turns into psychological submission. This is why the most powerful people in history, from emperors to CEOs, understood the importance of restraint. They didn't reveal everything. They let silence do the speaking. Machiavelli himself wrote that men judge more by the eye than by the hand, meaning perception creates reality. You don't need to act powerful. You need to be perceived as powerful through what you don't show. Every average man enters a room with hunger. He wants to be liked. He wants to be understood. He wants validation. And that hunger makes him predictable. The dangerous man? He starves the room of predictability. He doesn't react to jokes. He doesn't laugh too soon. He doesn't fidget. He doesn't fill silence with chatter. Every second of stillness becomes pressure. Every lack of reaction becomes a mirror, forcing others to look inward and question themselves. And the longer they stay in your presence, the more they feel your gravity. Because silence is not emptiness. It's a message. It says, I am not here to be liked. I am here to exist, fully, calmly, and unapologetically. Before you can dominate a room, you must dominate yourself. That means mastering your breathing, your micro-expressions, your tone, your posture. When chaos happens, you don't react. When insult comes, you don't explain. When you're misunderstood, you stay silent. Because explanation is the language of weakness. It's begging for understanding. And the truly powerful never beg. They let people misunderstand them. They let rumors spread. They let others assume, because assumption is free intelligence. The less people know, the more they fear. You must train yourself to find peace in being misjudged, because when you no longer need to be understood, you become untouchable. Every conversation is a battlefield, but only one side knows it. The weak talk to fill the space. The strong use silence to shape it. Let them talk. Let them overshare. Let them try to impress you. While they reveal themselves, you remain a shadow, absorbing everything, revealing nothing. And when you finally speak, your words hit harder than any argument, because true authority isn't in the volume of your voice. It's in the weight of your pause. Now I want you to practice something. Next time you enter a room, whether it's work, school, or even a family dinner, don't try to blend in. Don't speak first. Don't perform. Walk in with deliberate calm, sit back, observe, and say nothing for the first 10 minutes. Watch what happens. You'll see people shift. They'll adjust their tone. They'll start acknowledging you more than before, because your energy disrupted their comfort zone. That's not arrogance. That's mastery. Presence isn't about doing more. It's about doing less with intention. This is the beginning of becoming the storm no one sees coming. The kind of person whose silence feels like pressure, whose calm feels like a weapon, whose presence lingers long after you've left the room. From this point on, you don't chase energy. You absorb it. You don't demand attention. You command it, because power doesn't shout. Power watches. It waits. And when the time is right, it strikes silently. Welcome to the first stage of transformation. You are not here to be seen. You are here to be sensed. This is how dangerous begins. They say emotions make us human. But what if emotions are also what make us weak? Think about it. Every manipulation, every argument, every insult only works because it triggers a reaction in you. When you feel anger, guilt, or shame, you've already been controlled. You've given someone access to your mind. And in the game of power, that's the first and final mistake. If you want to become untouchable, if you want to command silence, authority, and fear without raising your voice, you must first do the hardest thing a man can do. Detach. Emotionally, mentally, spiritually, not from life, but from dependence. Most men think being emotional makes them authentic. They wear their hearts on their sleeves. They want to be real, open, passionate. But passion without discipline is chaos. And chaos is weakness dressed in noise. Every time you react, you tell the world what controls you. Someone insults you, you get angry. Someone ignores you, you get insecure. Someone rejects you, you start proving yourself. And just like that, you've handed over your power. Machiavelli once said, "He who controls fear controls men." But here's the hidden truth. If someone can control your emotions, they already control your decisions. The first step to detachment is to study your reactions. When you feel anger, don't suppress it, observe it. When you feel fear, don't deny it, dissect it. You must become the scientist of your own mind, not the subject of your emotions. Picture this. Someone disrespects you in public. The weak man defends himself immediately. He raises his voice, explains, argues, tries to prove his worth. But the dangerous man, he doesn't. He looks, he pauses. He lets the silence expand like a storm cloud, and everyone feels it. That's psychological dominance, because silence makes people question themselves. Did they go too far? Did they offend the wrong person? Why isn't he reacting? And in that moment of uncertainty, you've already won. You've turned emotional bait into psychological leverage. Never give people the reaction they expect. If they expect anger, stay calm. If they expect fear, show curiosity. If they expect guilt, give indifference. Confusion is the enemy of control, and your stillness is the weapon that creates it. When you're emotionally detached, people can't read you. They can't predict you. They can't manipulate you. You become a mirror, reflecting their own chaos back at them. Emotional detachment doesn't mean being numb. It means being strategic. You still feel emotion. but you decide when and how to show it. Imagine standing in a storm while everyone else scrambles for shelter, but you remain perfectly still. That's what emotional detachment looks like. It's the state where you no longer need the world to validate how you feel. You no longer need people to understand your motives. You no longer seek revenge or reaction. You just see, you calculate, and you wait. The world loses its grip on you the moment you stop needing it to feel anything. Most people don't even realize how often they give their power away. Every argument you enter, every explanation you offer, every apology you give just to avoid conflict is a small surrender. You're teaching others how to control you. You're teaching them that your peace depends on their approval. And once they know that, they own you. The emotionally detached man breaks that pattern completely. He doesn't argue. He doesn't over-explain. He doesn't chase understanding. He simply decides, this is what I will allow, and this is what I will not. If someone crosses a line, he doesn't lecture them. He disappears. Because boundaries without emotion are power. They're not threats. They're statements. And people believe statements when they come from calm certainty. Detachment is not something you feel. It's something you train. Start with your smallest emotional impulses. That urge to reply to every text instantly. Control it. That itch to defend yourself online. Resist it. That habit of explaining your silence. Stop it. Every time you choose not to react, you grow stronger. You'll feel uncomfortable at first. Your brain will scream for expression. That's because you've been conditioned to equate reaction with relevance. But true relevance, true dominance, lives in restraint. Remember, every strong emotion is a test, and every time you stay calm, you pass it. The dangerous man doesn't get colder by accident. He chooses it over and over until it becomes instinct. There's a reason people fear the calm ones. Calm men create uncertainty. Uncertainty triggers anxiety, and anxiety leads to control. It's primal. When two animals face off, the one that stays still longest wins. Stillness signals confidence. Movement signals fear. Humans are no different. The one who remains calm controls the energy of the room. Your breath becomes your anchor. Your posture becomes your message. Your tone becomes your blade. You don't need to shout to dominate. You just need to never flinch. Because when everyone else loses control, you'll be the one they look to for stability. And that's when leadership begins. Here's the truth most won't admit. Emotional detachment terrifies people. They'll call you cold. They'll say you've changed. They'll say you don't care anymore. And they're right. You don't care about their approval. You don't care about their perception. You care about control. Not of them, but of yourself. Because the man who can't be emotionally moved can't be manipulated. He becomes a ghost in a world of noise. Untouchable, unpredictable, unstoppable. That's what happens when your emotions serve you, not the other way around. Stand in front of a mirror. Look at your face. Now, remove the emotion. No smile, no frown, no reaction. Hold that expression until you can look at yourself and feel nothing. Then add control to your breath. Slow inhale, slow exhale, no tension. This is what unreadable looks like. This is what untouchable feels like. Train it daily, because when your face no longer betrays your mind, you become impossible to decode, and the world fears what it can't read. Emotional detachment isn't just protection, it's liberation. You stop being enslaved by people's opinions. You stop living on reaction. You stop giving your energy to everything that tries to provoke you. You become silent, calculating, observant. You start moving with intention. You choose your words like weapons, and you begin to see everyone else is trapped in their emotions, fighting shadows that you've already outgrown. Detachment gives you space, and in that space, you gain vision. You see motives. You see patterns. You see truth. The world slows down for the detached man, and in a world of panic, slow is dangerous. When you feel nothing unnecessary, you gain everything essential. You'll realize you don't need revenge. You don't need validation. You don't even need understanding. Because when you master detachment, you no longer chase control, you are control. Your silence becomes heavy, your calm becomes magnetic, and your presence becomes a quiet threat to every insecure soul that crosses your path. This is the art of emotional detachment. Not apathy, but awareness. Not numbness, but mastery. You are no longer part of the chaos. You are the calm above it, and that's why no one can touch you. Presence. It's the invisible weapon of every powerful man. It's what makes people turn their heads when you walk into a room, even when you say nothing. It's what makes silence louder than speech. It's what makes fear, respect, and curiosity orbit around you like gravity. Most men never master it. They talk too much, move too fast, explain too often. They fill every silence because they fear being unnoticed. But Machiavelli understood something few ever do. True dominance requires no announcement. When you possess power in silence, people sense it, even before they understand why. Before you speak, before you move, your energy enters first. Every human being projects invisible signals: posture, breathing, eye contact, rhythm, stillness. The weak scatter their energy in all directions. The powerful condense it. When you walk into a room with control, slow, grounded, deliberate, your presence speaks louder than words ever could. People feel it. Their subconscious registers calm danger. It tells them, this one is different. You're not chasing attention. You're commanding it through stillness. Because stillness signals one thing: certainty. And certainty, in a world full of doubt, is magnetic. Machiavelli studied rulers who commanded armies, but never needed to shout. He noticed a simple pattern. The most feared leaders rarely moved fast. They stood still. They observed more than they spoke. They made others approach them. This is posture psychology. When your shoulders are squared, your breath controlled, your head slightly still, you're communicating confidence. When your movements are small, precise, and intentional, you're showing discipline. When you stop fidgeting, when you stop seeking approval through motion, your presence expands. It fills space. You become the calm center of chaos. Eyes are the oldest form of communication. Before words, there was gaze, and gaze still dominates every interaction. Most men look away too soon. They blink rapidly, avoid eye contact, or dart their gaze like prey. They broadcast submission without realizing it. The Machiavellian gaze is different. It's patient, unwavering, observant, not aggressive. It studies before it speaks. Hold your gaze not to intimidate, but to analyze. Because power doesn't stare to be seen, it stares to understand. When you master your gaze, people will struggle to lie to you. They'll hesitate. Their confidence will tremble under your silence. Not because you're threatening, but because your stillness forces them to confront their own instability. Most people fear silence. They rush to fill it. They can't stand the echo of their own insecurity. But silence is the field where true power plays. When you speak less, every word you do speak gains weight. People listen closer. They wait for your reaction. They measure themselves through your pauses. In Machiavellian strategy, silence is never emptiness. It's calculation. You let others reveal themselves while you remain still. You make them talk too much, confess too soon, over-explain their weaknesses, and you gather everything while giving nothing. The man who speaks less always knows more, and the one who reacts last always controls the outcome. Every environment has a rhythm, the rhythm of speech, movement, emotion. Most people sink unconsciously to it, but the Machiavellian never adapts to others. He sets the tempo. He walks slower in rooms where people rush. He speaks more calmly when others shout. He pauses longer when others hurry. And soon, everyone adjusts to his pace. That's the secret. Control the rhythm, and you control the room. Powerful presence is about energetic leadership, not dominance through volume, but through gravity. You pull people into your pace, and suddenly they're dancing to your silence. True presence doesn't come from appearance. It comes from restraint. Anyone can buy a suit or learn a pose, but very few can master the art of less. Less talking, less movement, less emotional leakage. When you restrain your impulses, people feel that something powerful is being held back. And that tension, that invisible pressure, creates awe. The more control you have over yourself, the more people believe you have control over everything else. That's how authority is born, not from dominance but from discipline. Every social setting hides an invisible hierarchy. Watch closely, you'll see it. Who speaks first? Who interrupts? Who listens? Who people turn toward when silence hits? These are silent cues of power. The man with presence never fights for attention. He lets others reveal their insecurity by needing it. He doesn't compete for dominance. He lets dominance reveal itself in the contrast between their noise and his calm. You don't have to be the loudest to be the leader. You just have to be the one people feel before you even speak. That's hierarchy through vibration, not position. When you do speak, speak with economy, no filler, no over-explaining. Every word must feel chosen. Pause before speaking. Make people wait for your thoughts. That pause builds tension, and tension builds respect. Machiavelli advised rulers to speak rarely, and when they did, to say only what advanced their purpose. The same applies to modern power. Speak like your words cost energy, because in truth, they do. Energy spent in noise is energy lost in control. Presence is trained through awareness. Start here. Walk slower. Move like you have nowhere to rush, because powerful people don't rush. Speak softer. Let others adjust to your tone. Maintain stillness, especially when others are emotional. Hold eye contact a second longer than comfortable. Breathe consciously. Your calm rhythm becomes contagious. You're teaching your nervous system to radiate stability, and that stability becomes felt energy, the essence of presence. It's not what you say that captures a room, it's what you withhold. When you combine calm posture, controlled gaze, and deliberate silence, something extraordinary happens. You become magnetic, not because you're trying to attract, but because you're unavailable. The world is addicted to reaction, so when someone doesn't react, they become mysterious. People start wondering, what's he thinking? What does he want? Why does he look so calm? That curiosity becomes your silent weapon. Mystery fuels attraction, and presence fuels mystery. You are no longer chasing attention, you are attention. Presence is not about being seen, it's about being felt. When you walk into a room and say nothing, but people still adjust their behavior, you've achieved silent power. That's when you stop being part of the crowd and become the axis it spins around. Speak when necessary, move with purpose, breathe with intention, and remember, the greatest kings never shout to prove they rule. Their silence is their crown. That's the power of presence, the art of mastering the room without ever needing to speak. Power doesn't come from what you do. It comes from what people believe you can do. In the theater of power, perception is the stage, and the Machiavellian doesn't perform. He directs the play. He doesn't force people to obey. He leads them to choose obedience on their own. He shapes the air around him, bends assumptions, and lets belief do the work. That is the art of strategic influence. It's not manipulation, it's architecture. You're building an image so calculated that reality itself begins to follow it. Most people think control comes from dominance, commands, pressure, rules. But Machiavelli saw a higher truth. The one who appears to control things already does. Humans follow images, not logic. They follow certainty, not argument. If they believe you're powerful, they'll act as if you are, and that belief reinforces the image. This is the loop of influence. You don't chase control. You create the perception of control and let others fill in the blanks. That's why kings wear crowns, generals stand above their armies, and leaders speak slowly. These are not accidents. They're signals. Power begins where people think it begins. The Machiavellian doesn't show his full face. He wears masks, not to deceive, but to design how others see him. One mask for allies, another for rivals, another for the public eye. Each version of you is a reflection of someone's expectations, but behind them all stands the real strategist, unseen, untouched. Never reveal your full self, because once people understand you completely, they stop fearing you. And once they stop fearing you, they start controlling you. Keep parts of yourself hidden. Let your mystery become the fog that protects your intentions. That's not dishonesty, that's self-preservation. Machiavelli called it the fox's wisdom. You don't roar like a lion, you disappear like a shadow. Ambiguity is control. When people can't predict you, they start adapting to you. They tread carefully. They think twice before crossing you. And the moment they start guessing, you're already ahead. Speak in implications, not confessions. Act in ways that create more questions than answers. Let others define your motives for you, because every interpretation they make gives you leverage. They reveal how they think. While you remain unreadable, they become transparent. Never give clear signals unless clarity serves you. Let uncertainty be your armor. When they can't read you, they can't prepare for you. Every powerful figure throughout history had one thing in common: a myth. Caesar had his divine destiny. Napoleon had his unstoppable genius. Machiavelli had his calculated ruthlessness. A myth is not a lie. It's a story that amplifies truth. It turns your existence into legend. You must craft your own. Ask yourself, what do I want people to believe about me? Do I want to be seen as dangerous, as intelligent, as unpredictable, as visionary? Then live in a way that suggests it, not loudly, but consistently. Speak less, do more. Let actions build whispers. Let whispers become rumors. Let rumors become your mythology. And once your myth exists, defend it quietly, because your reputation is the shadow that walks into every room before you do. Influence is not about truth. It's about framing truth. Frame determines meaning, and whoever defines the frame defines the narrative. When someone attacks you, never defend yourself within their frame. Shift it, redirect it. Make the conversation about your values, not their accusations. If they say, you're arrogant, you say, no, I'm just precise. If they say, you're manipulative, you say, I just understand people. You're not reacting, you're rewriting the story. Machiavelli taught that perception must always serve your advantage. Never let your enemy define who you are. Control the frame, and you control reality. The wise manipulator doesn't always appear strong. Sometimes he appears fragile, on purpose. Because people drop their guard around weakness. They open up. They underestimate. That's when the strategist listens, learns, and waits. Show vulnerability when it earns trust. Show humility when it buys space. Show emotion when it disarms suspicion. But never lose awareness. Even your softness should be calculated. You're not playing defense. You're luring confidence. Every emotion can be a disguise. Every gesture can be a message. Every weakness can be a trap. When you influence people effectively, they start echoing you without realizing it. They repeat your words. They imitate your rhythm. They mirror your tone. That's not coincidence. That's psychological synchronization. You've entered their subconscious. They start adjusting their emotions to yours. They begin seeking your approval without knowing why. It's the same power religious leaders, generals, and CEOs have used for centuries. Emotional contagion. Your calm becomes their calm. Your focus becomes their focus. Your silence becomes their discomfort. You don't push, you pull. Influence through resonance, not resistance. The greatest influence is the kind no one can trace back to you. You don't tell people what to do. You make them want to do it. You don't demand loyalty. You plant ideas that make loyalty feel like their choice. You don't order change. You inspire it through subtle positioning. When someone believes an idea was theirs, you've already won. Machiavelli warned rulers never to appear as tyrants. He advised them to guide, not force, to manipulate through perception, not pressure. Control minds gently, and you'll never need to control bodies. That's true mastery. Never be too available. Scarcity amplifies perception. When you're constantly seen, you lose mystery. When you're occasionally absent, you become legendary. Let your absence create demand. Let people wonder what you're building, who you're meeting, what you're planning. The unknown is always more powerful than the familiar. Even Machiavelli wrote that a ruler must balance presence and distance, visible enough to remind people of his power, but distant enough to remain superior. Too much exposure destroys reverence, so disappear strategically. The shadow grows when it steps out of the light. Everything you do, your words, posture, tone, silence, builds perception. You are an architect, and your reputation is the structure. Every interaction adds a brick. Every rumor adds a layer. Every silence adds a roof. Build intentionally. Design how people feel about you, not by forcing them, but by guiding their interpretation. They will fear what they don't understand. They will respect what they can't predict. And they will follow what feels inevitable. That's what perception is, inevitability. When people feel you can't be ignored, they stop trying to. The Machiavellian knows. Every light creates a shadow, and in that shadow lies his true advantage. He doesn't crave attention, he controls it. He doesn't chase influence, he designs it. He doesn't beg for trust, he manufactures belief. And when people look at him, they don't see a man. They see a mystery they can't solve. That's not manipulation, that's mastery. Influence in its highest form is silent. And when you master perception, you no longer live in the world people see. You live in the world they believe you own. There is a way to win without ever fighting, a way to destroy an enemy without ever drawing blood, a way to dominate, not through force, but through psychology. This is the realm of the unseen war, a battlefield that exists in minds, not on maps, and the one who understands it never needs to raise his sword. Machiavelli called it the invisible conquest. It's not about battles, it's about breaking the will of others to resist you. In this part, we step into the art of psychological warfare, how to win before conflict ever begins, how to make your silence more devastating than any weapon. Every interaction is a form of war, a negotiation, a debate, a relationship. They all revolve around power. The weak think war happens when swords clash, but the powerful know war begins the moment intentions collide. The battlefield is not the field, it's the mind. And the most dangerous weapon you can carry is awareness. Because once you can see what others want, you can control it. Once you can predict their moves, you can direct them. Once you can trigger their emotions, you can command their reactions. And that's how psychological warfare works. You control the game by mastering what the other player feels. The first rule of silent warfare: control expectations. People act based on what they expect you'll do. If they expect anger, and you respond with calm, they lose balance. If they expect fear, and you answer with silence, they become uncertain. If they expect surrender, and you offer indifference, they panic. The unexpected is your first weapon. It shakes confidence. It breaks rhythm. It makes your opponent start playing your game instead of their own. Because psychological victory isn't about strength, it's about confusion. The more confused your opponent becomes, the more predictable they are. And once they start reacting emotionally, you've already won. One of the most powerful Machiavellian strategies is mirroring. Not imitation, reflection. You become the emotional mirror of the person before you. When they're angry, you become calm. When they're nervous, you become slow. When they're arrogant, you become silent. Why? Because a mirror forces people to face themselves. They lose track of their control and reveal their psychology. You learn what drives them, you learn what weakens them, and once you understand that, you can subtly push them where you want, without ever seeming to try. This is how generals disarm nations, how leaders control mobs, how manipulators dominate conversations. You never fight directly, you reflect, observe, and then direct. Predictability kills fear, and the moment people can predict you, they stop respecting you. That's why the Machiavellian always introduces uncertainty, not chaos, controlled unpredictability. You delay responses, you alter patterns, you change tone unexpectedly. You make others wonder what you'll do next, and that wondering becomes psychological submission. When people can't anticipate your actions, they start watching you closely. They overthink, they hesitate, they make mistakes. Meanwhile, you remain calm, in control, yet unreadable. That's how a strategist defeats armies without firing a shot, by making them fight ghosts in their own minds. In every confrontation, the other side feeds off reaction. They want you to get emotional. They want you to explain, justify, or lose composure. But the Machiavellian does something devastating. He starves them. He gives nothing. No reaction, no outrage, no weakness. And that silence becomes psychological torture. Because people crave validation. They need acknowledgement to feel control. When you refuse to feed that need, they spiral inward. Their confidence fractures. They start questioning themselves. Did I go too far? Am I losing control? Why isn't he reacting? And soon they're not fighting you anymore. They're fighting themselves. That's when you've already won. Pressure reveals truth. When you apply steady, silent pressure, not through words but through stillness, people crack. You don't need to confront them. You let time, tension, and silence do the work. In a negotiation, wait longer than they can tolerate. In an argument, respond slower than they expect. In competition, stay calm longer than they can manage. Every second they overreact is a step closer to their collapse. Machiavelli taught that time is the cruelest weapon, because the one who can endure tension longer always wins. So be patient. Make others burn their energy while you conserve yours. When the dust settles, you'll still be standing, and they'll be begging for relief. True warfare begins long before confrontation. It starts when you plant ideas. A subtle word here, a calculated gesture there, a quiet implication left to grow. People will fill in the blanks with their own fears and suspicions. And the best part, they'll never realize it came from you. A single doubt can destroy loyalty. A small suggestion can shift alliances. A quiet question can unravel confidence. Machiavelli's brilliance was never in what he said. It was in what he implied. Because the human mind is a fertile ground for paranoia, and a strategist knows how to plant exactly the right seed, at the right time, to make it bloom into chaos. You never fight the man. You make him fight his own imagination. Your reputation is a sword that cuts before you lift it. When people believe you are dangerous, they approach you differently. When they believe you are calculating, they speak carefully. When they believe you are unbreakable, they stop trying to break you. Reputation creates preemptive fear, a psychological wall that protects you before war even begins. This is why Machiavelli advised rulers to cultivate an image of both mercy and ruthlessness. Enough kindness to attract loyalty, enough darkness to discourage betrayal. Your reputation must say, I don't start wars, but I always finish them. When people know that, they'll fight each other just to avoid fighting you. The strongest warrior is the one who can remain silent while being attacked. Because silence doesn't mean surrender. It means control. It means you're watching, listening, calculating. It means you value information over impulse. Every second of your silence forces the other side to reveal more. They get desperate to fill the void. They start talking too much. And in that flood of noise, they hand you the truth. The Machiavellian uses silence like a blade, sharp, precise, delivered without movement. In the mind of your enemy, silence is never empty. It's terrifying, because it forces them to imagine your next move, and imagination always exaggerates fear. Presence is the final layer of psychological warfare. It's when your energy alone becomes influence. You walk into a room and people feel a shift, like gravity just changed. That's not mysticism. It's behavioral science. Your breathing, posture, and silence all broadcast confidence. When others sense that stillness, they subconsciously adjust. They lower their voices. They change their tone. They match your rhythm. You've won the invisible war before words even begin. Presence is the battlefield where minds surrender without realizing it. It's the kind of dominance that doesn't need confrontation because your very existence ends it. That's not charisma. That's control. Machiavelli once said, "The greatest victory is the one that requires no battle." And he was right, because war drains, conflict exposes, fighting cheapens power. The true strategist doesn't destroy his enemies. He makes them destroy themselves. He uses silence as a sword, stillness as a shield, and patience as an army. He doesn't fight. He influences. He doesn't argue. He designs outcomes. And when the dust settles, everyone believes it was their choice. That is the final stage of power. To win without confrontation, to rule without force, to conquer without war. Power isn't something you chase. It's something you become. You can study Machiavelli. You can memorize the tactics. You can understand manipulation, strategy, silence, and control. But until those principles live inside you, until they become instinct, you're still a student of power, not its master. This final part is about transformation, how to become the danger, how to live as the kind of person others instinctively respect, fear, and follow, without saying a word. Because the goal of all Machiavellian philosophy is not to act powerful, it's to embody power. Machiavelli understood something few ever do. Power doesn't start in politics or strategy. It begins within. Before you can control others, you must first master your own mind. Discipline over impulse, clarity over emotion, patience over pride. Every moment you choose stillness over reaction, you sharpen the blade of your mind. Every time you resist the urge to prove yourself, you rise above those who live for attention. And one day, without even realizing it, your silence becomes more commanding than any speech. Your presence becomes more persuasive than any argument. That's when you know the transformation has begun. To become dangerous, the old you must die. The version of you that sought validation, that craved approval, that reacted emotionally to every insult, every betrayal, every opinion. Kill that part. Bury it deep. Because the Machiavellian mind is not concerned with how others see him. It's only concerned with how others behave around him. Detach from the need to be liked. Detach from the illusion of fairness. Detach from the fantasy that people will play by rules. Power doesn't belong to the kind, nor the loud, nor the hopeful. It belongs to the one who sees reality clearly and acts with precision. To become dangerous, you must first become cold, not cruel, not heartless, but disciplined enough to place purpose above emotion. That is the death of weakness. Most people are slaves to emotion. They react, they explode, they retreat, and they call it passion. But passion without direction is chaos. Emotion without control is weakness. The Machiavellian doesn't suppress emotions, he studies them. He observes them in himself the way a scientist studies a storm. He knows when anger rises. He feels when fear whispers. But he never acts from them. He acts from reason, from advantage, from outcome. This is how you become untouchable. You can be insulted, rejected, betrayed, and you remain centered. Because your focus isn't on how you feel, it's on what gets you closer to your goal. And that level of emotional detachment, that cold mastery, is what separates the ordinary from the powerful. Presence is not posture. It's not confidence, it's calibration. When you enter a room, you observe first. Who speaks the most? Who interrupts? Who watches silently but says little? You're not there to impress. You're there to analyze the map of power. Once you understand the flow, who seeks validation, who gives approval, who commands, you adapt your energy to disrupt it subtly. Speak less, move slower, command stillness. When you speak, speak with intent. Every word must feel chosen, deliberate, necessary. People will lean in to listen. They will measure themselves by your reactions. You will have turned silence into dominance. That is presence. Machiavelli called it the shadow of control. You do nothing, and yet everything bends toward you. Observation is useless unless it becomes leverage. Every human being reveals themselves in micro behaviors. A glance, a hesitation, a repeated phrase. You must train your eye to see patterns. Who seeks attention? Who fears silence? Who secretly craves approval? These are not random quirks. They're handles. Once you understand someone's emotional handles, you can move them without effort. Say less, suggest more. Ask questions that plant thoughts. Reward obedience with attention. Withdraw approval to create desire. This is how kings rule without decrees, how leaders control without force, how you too can shape outcomes while appearing passive. Leverage is silent power, and silent power is eternal. Machiavelli's most controversial teaching was simple. It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. But he never said fear should replace respect. He meant fear should guard it. Love makes people loyal. Fear makes them careful. And the balance between them, that tension, is where power lives. You cultivate respect through competence, consistency, and calm strength. You cultivate fear through unpredictability, self-sufficiency, and emotional restraint. Be generous, but not soft. Be kind, but never dependent. Be fair, but never equal. Because equality dissolves leadership, and leadership requires distance. Your warmth should inspire. Your silence should intimidate. Your presence should remind others, you are not like them. That is how power sustains itself without cruelty. There are laws the powerful live by, unspoken, yet absolute. They are not moral rules, but survival codes. Never explain yourself. Explanation invites judgment. Action silences doubt. Observe more than you speak. Knowledge is power, and the one who listens commands it. Never reveal your full intent. Mystery protects strategy. Transparency invites interference. Detach from every outcome. Desire makes you predictable. Indifference makes you unstoppable. Control access to yourself. The rarer your presence, the higher its value. Master appearance. Even the illusion of control creates real influence. Forgive nothing, but forget everything. Don't hold grudges, hold lessons. Revenge wastes time. Make people depend on you. The one who supplies value controls loyalty. Be ready to burn bridges. The man who fears loss loses everything. Always remain the mystery. Predictability is death. Ambiguity is protection. Live by this code, and power will orbit around you naturally. You will no longer need to chase it. It will seek you. Machiavelli didn't teach manipulation for the sake of cruelty. He taught survival. He understood that the world is ruled not by morality, but by perception. Those who see clearly and act decisively shape that perception. Those who cling to ideals are ruled by those who don't. Power evolves through awareness. First you see, then you control. Finally you become. And once you've evolved beyond reaction, beyond validation, beyond noise, you'll see life for what it is. A game of influence played by those who understand human nature. Not the strongest, not the kindest, but the most aware. To become the danger they never saw coming, you must embrace the role of the shadow. The shadow doesn't compete. It observes. It waits. It moves when the light overextends itself. The shadow never announces its arrival. It simply grows until it becomes the room itself. You must learn to exist like that, quietly, deliberately, without needing acknowledgement. Because real danger is not loud. It's silent, calm, certain. You are not meant to scream your worth. You are meant to embody it. When others look at you and can't quite tell what you're thinking, when they can't predict your next move, when your silence forces them to second-guess every word, you've arrived. You are now the presence, the energy that shifts rooms, the danger they never saw coming. Machiavelli's wisdom was never about evil. It was about clarity. He saw human nature as it is, not as it should be. And he taught the few willing to listen how to survive, how to influence, how to lead. Now you understand his secret. The goal was never domination, it was self-mastery. To rule yourself so completely that no one can ever rule you again. Because once you've achieved that, you don't need to prove anything. You don't need to react. You don't need to fight. You have already won. And from that point forward, your very existence becomes a weapon, not against others, but against weakness, chaos, and mediocrity itself. So walk quietly, think deeply, move strategically, and remember, the most dangerous person in any room is not the one who talks the loudest. It's the one who doesn't need to. That person is you.